Welcome to Maine Calling. I'm Keith Shortall. Many older Mainers have grown up on a farm or worked the fields at harvest time. But increasingly, the only exposure younger people may have to this rural life is on open farm day, which is happening soon, or venturing into corn mazes or at goat petting events. But these connections not only keep agriculture on the minds of those of us who otherwise might not experience it every day, they can bolster revenues for farm operators who sometimes work on very thin margins and whose profits may depend on the whims of Mother Nature. So, how important is this emerging sector, agritourism, to Maine's economy? My guest, Tori Jackson, Extension Professor of Agriculture and Natural Resources with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, and Ann Trenholm, Agricultural Promotions Manager in the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry's Bureau of Agriculture. And we invite you to questions or comments, email talk@mainepublic.org, tweet at Maine Calling, or post a comment to our Facebook page or to Instagram, or you can give us a call, 1-800-399-3566. That's 1-800-399-3566. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming on Maine Calling today.
Pleasure to be here.
Anne, I'm going to go to you first. How big a thing, to use the vernacular, is agritourism becoming in Maine?
Well, Keith, it's definitely becoming a thing. We've seen a trend in more farms participating in Open Farm Day. It's in its 32nd year. It's happening this Sunday. We've also seen the addition of new ways to connect with farms, with the growth of farm direct retail sales, the growth of farmers markets, and also a few new tours and trails are in the mix as well. This year launches the Maine Wild Blueberry Weekend, the first weekend in August. And we're also thinking of putting together, actually, as of today, a fiber shed tour for October Indigenous Peoples Weekend. So there's a lot of opportunities to connect. It's becoming a way to diversify income and to offer educational opportunities to consumers who want to find value in supporting local businesses and would like to connect with rural economies and that quality of place and space that a farm or a woodlot or maybe an aquaculture endeavor could provide.
So, how do you measure? We love to measure impact, right? We love to. I think there were some statistics at the top of the show about national statistics about what kind of contribution agritourism makes. But how do we measure that here in Maine? Do you have any sense of how it's to describe its growth, for example?
We do see some trends. Recently, the department has put together what I've called business meetups to connect farmers, artisans, people who are small business promoters, particularly after they noticed such success with direct sales during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've seen anecdotally, farmers have said, this is creating an opportunity for us to do farm direct sales, which again is a way to connect with agritourism. And they're also saying to us, an event like Maine Maple Sunday or Open Farm Day, it brings more customers to our retail shops, or it helps us connect with them beyond at the grocery store or a food co-op. So anecdotally, farmers are sharing this is positive to their margins. As you mentioned, Keith, it's pretty slim and farming is not without effort. It's not spontaneous, but I'm also energized by the department's role in focusing on where do we go from here. So I think we'll find a lot of opportunities this fall and winter as we expand our agritourism support, which we've already begun with our colleagues at University of Vermont Extension. They've led the charge in a lot of these modern approaches to agritourism. So it's pretty exciting.
I'll bring Tori in here. Tori, you work directly with new and beginning farmers. Is agritourism being embraced by that cohort more eagerly and earlier, say, than established older farmers for whom this is a new and alien adventure?
Absolutely. Farming is part of nearly every Maine community, along with fishing and forestry, one of our most important natural resource-based industries. And many farms include community involvement as part of the mission of their operation, in addition to creating and marketing their food and fiber products. They see it as a way to help connect the general public to where their food and fiber come from. And new beginning farmers that I work with are absolutely building some aspect of agritourism into their business plan from the get-go, whether that's an educational component, a pick your own, whether that's strawberries or pumpkins or lavender, or a farm stay, a camping ground, really any activity where the general public gets to come and have some sort of experience. They recognize the success of their farm depends not only on the sale of their products, but on, how well they're integrated into their communities.
So there's sort of a kind of a PR element to it as much as there is, selling some extra cheese or goat's milk upon the visit of folks. But do some of these side hustles, if you want to call it that, do they actually play a pretty significant role in the financial plan of some farms?
They really can. We've seen that customers are often less price sensitive when they're paying for an experience versus when they're shopping for a food product. So I've seen time and time again, whether it's a farm that's been in operation for a number of years or a relatively new farm, when we're looking at what each enterprise is bringing in for income, an agritourism enterprise really is ranked pretty highly when it's done well and thoughtfully on a farm.
Hmm. So there are all kinds, and the range. I think, Anne, you mentioned some of these. There's a range, anywhere from hay rides to corn mazes, all the way up though to sort of bed and breakfast operations and really high end, dining experiences. Are there any sort of things on the horizon that are, sort of trendy or new or interesting or different in terms of adding to the experience of a farm visit?
This is Anne, and I think we are seeing the trend. It's really a perfect time. So we understand that consumers are looking to know where their food or fiber or gifts and even small affordable luxury items are coming from. So it's both the essential items, that traceability of products, and certainly in Maine we are well poised to offer local and regional access to food. And then the other a piece that is connected to that is being available year round. We have also seen visitors looking for ways to kind of plan or DIY trips to regions throughout Maine. Our partners at the Tourism Association and the Office of Tourism are helping people connect directly with farms. And we see the trend in visitors saying, well, I might go and be down east, or maybe I'm in the Western Lakes and Mountain region, and they may go from one destination trip, but they'll find some smaller places to visit or shop at. And so we see the consumer's interest in that is evolving. And at the department, we've tried to stay in line with that with our trip itinerary tool, which is on realmaine.com, and it helps people find a farm that's near them. You just plug in the zip code of a place where you might be visiting or maybe where you live. You can add that to your trip itinerary and share it with friends and family. So we're seeing a little bit more connection with the digital, and then also a connection year round. And that's important and valuable for farmers because one event adds a lot of value to go and be a meetup place, but that year round connection keeps that story going. And it really is, as Tori mentioned, a community effort.
And obviously, the pandemic affected all kinds of businesses, particularly tourism. And I'm wondering how much this experience of the last year has changed the way some of these events happen. For example, you mentioned Open Farm Day is coming up. Is it this weekend? How is that going to be different from 2019?
It will be not too, it actually won't be too different, Keith, because farming is outside and outdoors. This is a place where you can stretch your legs and arms, and you have a lot of elbow room. The farms do take some precautions in terms of health measures anyway. So they have signage, they'll put up hand washing stations. Certainly, if people are masked up, we would encourage people to respect those preferences. But for the most part, farms have been very diligent and thoughtful in saying this is how we can kind of share some gratitude and experiences with people who showed up. I was on a training and coaching call, which we've begun to offer for agritourism farms. I was on one of those last week, and a farm in the southern part of the state said they had a customer. I think it was something like 30% individual increase in sales just from the pandemic. And they weren't sure if that would continue into evolving out of the pandemic. It has, and that person has brought on more friends and family members to support this farm. So it's really heartening to hear that. And I think, if anything, it's brought to light why agriculture is so valuable and why it has always been essential.
Yeah. I want to go to the phones now and bring in Sarah Alexander. She's Executive Director of the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. Sarah, are you with us?
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So we're just talking about how some of these annual events might be a little different this year because of the adjustments we've made for the pandemic. You're overseeing the Common Ground Fair planning, which was virtual all of last year. What are the prospects this year for literally being on common ground?
Yeah, well, we're really excited this year to be back in person, but a lot of the things your other guests are mentioning around adaptations are certainly in place for the fair this year as well. It's going to look a little bit different. So we're thinking a lot about congestion and where we can eliminate that. We're spacing things out more so people have more space to naturally, socially distance. We're asking everybody to buy their ticket in advance this year. That ends up being one of the biggest areas of congestion. So we're hoping to just be able to scan everybody through right away, so they don't have to wait in line to get tickets and wait in line to be processed to get their ticket taken. And we're putting in more hand washing stations, more sanitation, all the same sorts of things that folks are talking about. But we're really fortunate that our event is outside, which I know it's the same things with events on farms, that we can hold them safely and feel confident about that with some of these minor adaptations in place.
And I missed it. Did you mention at the top, will masks be required, for example?
We haven't made a decision about that. We're still 2 months away from our fair date, and so we're keeping a close eye on things. We'll be following all CDC guidelines and recommendations, and we'll be making decisions as we get closer to the fair whether or not we'll be requiring masks.
A lot of businesses, tourism businesses, have experienced difficulty in finding staff, even though the industry has sort of opened up to a great extent this summer, but there's been difficulty finding workers, volunteers. How are you faring in planning for Common Ground Fair?
Yeah, well, Common Ground is interesting because it is entirely run by volunteers. It takes 2,000 volunteers to put the fair on every year, and there are 250 volunteers that work year-round to make that happen. But just like everybody else, we've also seen a shortage in folks this year, folks that are worried about maybe their own health or their family's health, or they've had to move on to different priorities. The pandemic has sort of forced them to refocus on things. So we are looking for volunteers this year. If anybody's out there and wants to become one of those 2,000 volunteers that really help make the fair happen and make it such a special event, you can go to mofca.org/volunteers and get all the details. And volunteers get in for free. They get a free fair T-shirt, and they get a free meal out of our common kitchen, which uses all local and organic products from all of our wonderful farms in the state.
See, it just strikes me that, fairs, and in particular Common Ground fairs, are really kind of the model for agritourism because it's a blend of entertainment, education, and mostly, though, the mission is to connect people to agriculture. So in that way, it's kind of the model for what might be happening on a smaller scale at farms around the state. What does MAFCA do to help farmers who are interested in expanding their attractions to draw visitors or sell more product?
Yeah, well, we have a number of resources that we use to support farms year-round, and certainly trying things out at the Common Ground Country Fair is a great way for farms to see, hey, do I want to do more of this? Do I want to interact with the public? Do I want to do more education, workshops, demonstrations, talks, those sorts of things? Those things all happen at the fair. We have the largest farmers market in the state when the fair happens. We have over 600 exhibitors, many of whom are farmers are local to Maine that are presenting and demonstrating on things. So it's a great way to sort of test things out without having to make a big investment on farm. But then throughout the year, we're providing workshops. We have a big farmer to farmer conference every year in November, and folks get to share what's working for them, what's not working, what are the lessons learned about having folks on your farm, and what do you need to think about if you want to be successful in that.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to the fair, and best of luck in your planning, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That was Sarah Alexander with MAFCA and the Common Ground Fair. I'm going to take a break in a minute, but I do want to, before this is a very positive conversation, it's fair to say that agritourism is not for every farm operation, right? This is not just, it's not sort of a given. You have to like people. You have to be okay with having crowds on your farm. There's also a lot of expense. There's liability insurance. It's not as there's a lot to it. Is that safe to say? Anne, we'll start with you.
Yes, there is a lot to it. And Tori and I were discussing this actually a few weeks ago about risk management. And so the insurance is part of it. We do have a liability law in Maine, which helps farmers. And that is a tool in their quote unquote risk management toolbox. But it also takes marketing and planning. You need to be a little bit more aware of the role you take on as a marketer. It's not as simple as saying, okay, well, I'm going to defer this to a larger brand or a cooperative. There's a lot to it. And you want to be publicly facing as well and welcoming and inviting. Luckily, we have some great tools to help people with our partners over at DECD and the tourism office. They're helping coach people about what's going on regionally and also how to be a great customer service representative.
Yeah. Tori, would you be honest though if someone came to you and said, I really just want to farm. I don't want to be distracted with hay rides and hiring people to be publicly facing. If you don't want to do that, it's probably not going to work anyway, right? If you don't have a passion for it.
Oh, absolutely, Keith. It really comes down to two factors. One, not every farm production system really lends itself to an agritourism venture. But maybe more importantly is the personality and the wants and needs of the farm owners and managers. If you are not someone who wants to be interfacing with customers, a lot of customers on a daily basis, both on the phone, by email, on social media, and in person, it may not be for you. Some people get into agriculture because they want to kind of be more on their own. They want to be out in the field or on a tractor or, working their apple trees or with the animals by themselves. And that was, a really big draw for them for getting into farming in the first place. If that is you, this may not be something to consider for your operation.
Right. You have to be honest with yourself. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, your questions and comments. The number to call, 1-800-399-3566. That's 1-800-399-3566. This is Maine Calling. We'll be right back.
Listener support brings us Maine Calling with help from Eastern Basements, a division of Maine-owned Eastern Mold Remediation, offering crawl space repairs and waterproofing, easternbasements.com, and A Family for Me, a Spur Week program committed to raising awareness of the need for foster and adoptive parents. Learn more at afamilyformemaine.org.
On the next Science Friday, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy tells how COVID has opened the door to tackling mental health.
We have an opportunity to reimagine the kind of country that we want when it comes to mental health in a way that makes well-being something that's within the reach of every person and certainly every child in our country.
Tackling the next big problem after COVID on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
And listen in for Science Friday. That begins this afternoon at 2, right here on Maine Public Radio. A special thanks to Justin from Bath for his donation of a 2003 Saab 9.5. Donated cars, trucks, and SUVs makes it possible for us to do more here at your public radio station, and the Maine Public Vehicle Donation Program makes it easy. Towing is free, and that great feeling you get from supporting the programming you enjoy is priceless. If you're wondering what to do with your unneeded vehicle, please consider Maine Public's Vehicle Donation Program. Visit mainepublic.org for all the details. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Maine Calling. I'm Keith Shortall. Today's topic is agritourism. We're learning about ways in which farms can attract visitors and augment their income. Joining me today is Ann Trenholm. She manages agricultural promotions for the State Bureau of Agriculture, and Tori Jackson. She's a professor with UMaine Cooperative Extension, focusing on agriculture and natural resources. Share your comments or questions. Email talk@mainepublic.org, tweet @MaineCalling, post a comment to our Facebook page or to Instagram, or give us a call. The number, 1-800-399-3566. On the line with us now is Heather Donahue, she's secretary of the Maine Cheese Guild and owner of Balfour Farm in Pittsfield. Heather Donahue, welcome to Maine Calling.
Good afternoon, or good morning still, I guess. It's wonderful to talk to you, Kate.
It's somewhere in between. I'm not exactly sure.
Almost.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that the Cheese Guild has some events that are part of agritourism here in Maine. Tell us a little bit about. I love the cheese festival. Who would not want to take part in a cheese festival? But also Open Creamery Day. Tell us about those.
Right. So the Cheese Festival is kind of the opportunity to come and see lots and lots of cheesemakers and artisan food producers and drink producers here in Maine, all in one spot. It's going to be September 12th in Manson Park in Pittsfield. And due to COVID, when we started our planning, we actually split our day into 2 sessions. So there's an early day session from 11 to 2, and then there's an afternoon session from 3 to 6. And we're going to have live music. We also have the premiere of the Maine Cheese Awards, where we are going to be having judging of some of the Maine cheeses that are available, and we'll be handing out awards in the evening. So that's an opportunity where you can go to one spot and see lots and lots of different kinds of cheeses, talk to the cheesemakers, ask them about how they make things, and also learn through demonstrations of what to do with cheese, how to cook with cheese, and other things that you can eat with cheese.
So how important is the sort of, I guess, the collective identity of cheesemakers? You know, we might lump them into, well, we're makers, we produce, food, we're food producers. But this seems to be sort of an intentional effort to say, well, wait a minute, we're separate, we're distinct, we do something, that's different. And how important from a marketing standpoint, I guess, is it to ring your own bell? Right.
So within cheese making, that's our goal. That's our purpose, is to make cheese. But within that, we are so very unique. Some of us are very small operations. Some are very large. Some are in between. We have lots of different animals involved. Here in Maine, we have cow, goat, sheep, even water buffalo producing cheese, milk, and cheese products from those animals. And the methods of producing are very different. We have a lot of raw milk cheese producers here in Maine. We also have some that are pasteurizing or heat treating, which is very unique to Maine and is part of what's allowed the cheese-making community to flourish so much in Maine as well. It really provides an opportunity for small cheesemakers to really thrive and be able to build a business out of this goal that we have of making cheese and keeping animals. And within that, we also have, organic milk producers. So there's lots of different kinds of milk, and every cheesemaker that you meet is going to have a little bit different method of how they're making their products. And that's what makes us so very interesting and a great way to explore agriculture in Maine.
So most of us are familiar with goat cheese, obviously. How would you describe water buffalo cheese? Is there anything to compare it to?
Well, water buffalo milk is very, very rich. It has a really high fat and protein content, and it's just extremely rich and creamy. And the water buffalo Appleton, the Maine Water Buffalo Company in Appleton, they actually make gelato from their buffalo milk, as well as soft cheeses and yogurts, and they are just so thick and creamy. It's like nothing you've ever had in this world.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Heather Donahue, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Heather Donahue owns Balfour Farm, and she is with the Maine Cheese Guild. Let's take a call here. Allison has been waiting patiently. Allison, I'm going to bring you in, I think, here. Hi, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Allison Lakin, and I'm the owner of Lakin Sport Cheese and co-owner of East 40 Farm, which is where we are located in beautiful Waldoboro. And one of the side effects of the pandemic last year is we changed some of the ways that we offer products here at the farm. Our farm store moved outside and is still outside, and part of that is because I had unsold cheese last year, which I realized would be great to go into pasta. So our commercial kitchen expanded, and so now we make this great line of pasta and offer at our farm. Our cowside suppers, which used to be 20 people seated at one table eating communally underneath a grape arbor, this year we are offering individual tables for people that come and join us on the third Sunday of the month. But the August 15th supper will be very special because we'll be celebrating my 10th anniversary of Lakin's Gorgeous Cheese. And from 11 to 1, we'll be offering guided cheese tasting, and you can reserve spots on lakinsgorgeouscheese.com. And then the evening supper will be featuring recipes that I've developed over the last 10 years to encourage people to think differently about how they eat their cheese. I want people to have fun, and so every Wednesday I post a new recipe on my social media pages on both Instagram and Facebook. And so the supper will be celebrating both the cheeses and how you use them. And we also, out of the pandemic, because we have the space on the farm, we started hosting last year a farmers market here, and that has continued this year. It's small, pithy, and you can get basically everything you could want. Yeah. right here.
Allison, let me just ask you, because we've been talking a little bit about this, how it's hard enough to run a farm. And then on the other side of that, it's hard enough to run public events, bringing people in, all of that. Do you have any time for yourself, or is this enjoyable, or is this just what you have to do if you want to be in this business?
I would say that it's a combination of that. Yes, I would like some more sleep, but right now it's the sun is shining, and it's a good time to welcome people onto the farm. Although we also welcome people here year round, but we need to be doing these things in order to stay in business, because the market the wholesale market has changed so much, and the way that people are purchasing products has changed. But it is still fun, and one of the great things, like we just had the supper this past Sunday, is you don't know what the personalities of the people are going to be like when they come here, and we welcome them and give them a good experience, feed them good food, and they leave happy, and they come back and they tell their friends. And so we're sharing the joy that we have here, for my cheese that I make, for the pigs that we raise together, for our beautiful cows that eat the grass next to you while you're having your dinner. We have a lot of joy here, and it is a lot of fun. Okay. But it is very hard work, and it is just the two of us here at this farm.
Sure. Yeah, really, truly labor of love. Allison, thanks so much for sharing your story, and your enthusiasm. I do want to bring in now Saren Sinisi, who is co-owner with her husband Steve of the Old Crow Ranch located in Durham. Saren, are you with us?
I'm here. Can
Welcome.
you hear me?
Yes, I can. You sound great.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks so much for having me, Keith.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. First of this operation is the Old Crow Ranch. This is truly a ranch. You raise livestock, cattle, pigs, and chickens in Durham, and you and your husband started this. That's a major product, starting a cattle ranch. How did that happen?
Well, tenacity, and my husband would say by people telling him that he couldn't do it, and he was destined to prove them wrong. And I think he's done a darn good job of that. I would say that my husband, Steve, is definitely the farmer of the bunch. In fact, when we started dating back in 2010, I told him, I think I'd be a farmer's wife, but I don't really want to be a farmer. After being married and with them for over a decade, I realized that I have to take on that role of farmer as well. Like, I have to own that. I can talk the talk, I can walk the walk when needed, but for all of that, we have a fairly 1950s division of labor of I do all of the marketing and all of the sales and all of I run the farm store. The tiny house, which is our farm stay, is totally my operation. But we couldn't do it without each other, which is pretty awesome. And again, just like Allison's story, it's just me and Steve. We have lots of community that's amazing. My parents are nearby, and we have a couple people who will come in a pinch, and some good babysitters for our small girls. But really, it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, and can you envision? You don't have to share with the rest of the world. Maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but is this something you could sustain for years and years?
It's a great question, Keith. And honestly, it's one that we mull over as Steve is 45 and I'm closing in on 40. We are definitely thinking. I had a student yesterday who I gave a farm tour to be like, "What's your 10-year plan?" And I was like, "Good question." I think we're already thinking of how do we create a more sustainable future for the farm, get to a point where we've paid off enough of the debt that we can afford to hire a farmhand or get into practices like agrotourism where the payback might be a slightly higher rate. Because right now we're paying our bills, we're doing great, but there's nothing extra. And just like Allison, there's no time. There's no sleep, especially with two small kids. Farming is not for the faint of heart.
Right. You mentioned the tiny house. Now, this is part of your offer. This is a tiny house that you rent out online. And what's the experience that one gets in the tiny house?
So the Crow's Nest tiny house we installed year after year. We build a little bit something extra into the farm every year. And so 2019, we installed the Crow's Nest tiny house. It's an 8 by 24 foot tiny house on wheels built by Tiny Homes of Maine. And it's got its own little enclave surrounded by forest, and it looks out over the cattle grazing in the front field. And so it's its own little oasis, but with every farm stay, you can take the opportunity to have a guided farm tour where myself and probably Farmer Steve-O and the little girls, our 7-year-old and 4-year-old, and most likely the farm cats, Willie and Waylon, who are always underfoot, will show you around and show you the cattle and the chickens and the pigs and walk you through the gardens, and we'll, sample the cherry tomatoes if they're ripe. And
Right.
So, and then at the end of that, they always have the opportunity to come to the farm store and buy some meat that's raised right here on farm. Beef or pork is almost always stocked in the farm store, and chicken in season. We don't raise those in the winter. They're way too fragile. We're pasture-based, so chickens in snow, not so much.
So I do have to ask, because maybe listeners are wondering. So it's a cattle ranch. Is odor an issue for the overnight stay in the tiny house?
It's not. We're a rotationally, being pasture-based, there's no smell attached here. Steve is a fastidious manager of pastures, and by rotationally grazing the cattle, they're always spreading their own poop amongst the pastures. So it's not like we've got lagoons of manure anywhere, and all of our compost. We do, I mean, there is an odor when the compost gets rotated, gets flipped, which he does, because that's how you make compost, is you have to keep aerating it and turning it. But that's a once a month process, and so maybe it's a little stinky for an hour or so, but it's not an end of.
Right. It's not
deal
a
deal breaker.
Yeah, deal breaker. Yeah, okay.
That's what I'm looking for.
Sarah and Sinisi, thank you so much for joining us. Really interesting.
Thanks, Keith.
Sarah and Sinisi with Steve, her husband, the founders and owners of Old Crow Ranch. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, more of your questions and comments. The number, 1-800-399-3566. This is Maine Calling. We'll be right back.
Listener support brings us Maine Calling with help from Maine Coast Sea Vegetables, 100% employee-owned, celebrating their 50th harvest season. Learn more at seaveg.com. And Maine Audubon, inviting you to connect with wildlife at 8 sanctuaries across the state. MaineAudubon.org.
I'm Celeste Headley. We talked with a survivor of the deadly 2018 Camp Fire in California who remembers just being happy to have escaped with her family. Her home and all of her possessions burned.
Then when you go through it, you realize, wow, some of those things were my kids' art from preschool that I'll never get back.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Listen in for Here and Now. That's today at noon. There's a lot going on here in Maine this summer. Concerts and classes, lectures and literature, fairs and festivals. How can you connect to it all? Maine Public's community calendar is here to help. It's easy to find things to do. Search by type of event, date, or location. And if you represent an organization and want to let Mainers know about your event, it's easy to enter the details on our online form. Maine Public's community calendar, bringing the people of Maine together. Visit mainepublic.org and click on events.
Welcome back. I'm Keith Shortall. You're listening to Maine Calling. We're talking about agritourism and how farms contribute to Maine's tourism economy. Our guests today, Tori Jackson with the UMaine Cooperative Extension and Ann Trenholm with the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. We welcome you to the conversation, 1-800-399-3566. Send a brief email to talk@mainepublic.org, tweet at Maine Calling, or post a comment to our Facebook page. Joining us on the line now is Marcia Lyon. She and her husband, Don, who is a Navy veteran, own Sea Lion Farm in Alna. Marcia, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us.
So I went on your website, and you have a lot going on your farm. It's like a 3-hour tour involving a steam train and a wagon ride and lots of lavender. It sounds like a dream I had once. But tell me about what this experience is.
So we have partnered with Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington Railway Museum, which has a stop right behind our farm. And we have pick your own lavender, pick your own pumpkins. In the winter, we have a steam and sleigh event, and we have an Easter egg hunt, and we also have some other events. But what we do is you get on the train, and you take a 30-minute ride up to the back of the farm, and we pick you up with either hay wagons or horse-drawn wagons or sleighs. And then you come to the farm, and you pick your own lavender, or pick your own pumpkins, or whatever event we have going at the time. And we have games and food, and it really has turned from when we started, it was just pick your own pumpkins without the train. And it was doing well, but now we are doing fantastic. The partnership could not be better for us or them. It works out great.
Yeah, who doesn't like a train ride? Tell me about lavender, though. This was a new venture for you and lavender products. How did that come about?
So we're veterans, and in our group we had another veteran that started growing lavender, and she goes, "Well, you're in the sheep's got Valley, you're mid-coast. Why don't you try growing lavender? So we did. 3 years later, we have over 2,000 plants. And we distill our own essential oil. We have a number of products made out of the essential oil and the other products made from distilling and dried flowers. And we have jams, and we infuse the lavender into the jams, and they are selling like crazy. You can get them at Sheepscott General, Rising Tide, the Kingfisher and the Queen, and the Maine Beer Shed.
So this is the experience is called the Lavender Pickin' Dinner Time Train. And
right.
When do those happen?
So we're just about getting ready to do our last one of the season, and we only do the trains on Saturdays, but we have so much traffic that we need the rest of the week to recover.
So this is only one. Is it sold out or?
I believe there's a few tickets left on the 6 o'clock train.
Okay. I also have to. Sorry. Go ahead.
But you can drive up anytime. At 8:30 in the morning, we start with yoga in the lavender field, and then at 10 we start pick your own lavender, where you can drive up and just come out and pick lavender and buy stuff in the store. And we do that until 8 o'clock at night on Saturdays.
Okay. I have to ask about the caboose adventure.
That is great. You can rent the caboose, and you can, I think it holds up to 15 people. And we host birthday parties with the caboose, or it's a group event. You can rent out the caboose for your birthday parties, anything, Father's Day, and it's a tag along on the train, and it's a lot of fun, and it's the old-fashioned caboose. It's wonderful.
Who doesn't love a caboose? Thank you so much, Marcia. Marcia Lyon is co-owner of Sea Lion Farm. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go to the phones now. Let's bring in Carrie, who is calling from Denmark. I assume that's Denmark, Maine.
It is.
Hi, Carrie. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. I'm just calling in. It's a great topic. Nice to hear Anne's voice. I talk to her via email frequently. I'm actually calling from my barn, where I'm getting ready for Maine Open Farm Day. We have a small 40-goat dairy and creamery, and we have our barn open all the time for folks. I feel my husband and I both grew up in 4-H, and we feel that it's part of our mission and goal to really teach people, kids and adults, where their food comes from. And so we participate in agritourism and essentially Open Farm Day every day, but it's really nice to have the organized event and publicized, and we do get more people here that day usually.
Yeah. But isn't it, I want to go back to this because, most of us, many of us would say, I feel uncomfortable having, strangers sort of walking on my property, sort of invading my life. It's an open door. It's, sometimes your property is your last place of, privacy. Does that ever bother you, or are you just, this is just part of your life now?
No, it was hard to get used to, honestly. And last year we had an event where we had an animal stolen. And so we did rethink it. But, it's open when we're here. We do have security measures. And it's important for folks to meet their food source. We're so removed as a society from where our food comes from that, to see an adult realize that the cheese in the farm stand came from that goat's udder is kind of cool to see. And we just feel it's very important.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, thanks so much. Thanks for joining us today. Tori, I want to ask, we've been talking a lot about the proprietors of these operations. Isn't it true that, though, that visitors to farms have a certain obligation and should be aware of what their role is in making this system work? We just heard about a stolen animal. Obviously, that's not okay. But what else should visitors know about as they're traipsing over the private lands and being welcomed into these operations around the state?
Absolutely. We've heard from a number of farmers who are describing events that sound like a ton of fun. And you're probably thinking, oh, I didn't know that I could do that here in Maine. And I think that's great. It's really important to recognize that farms are not parks. They are working operations, and usually they're primarily there for the creation of food or fiber. So it's really important to keep that in mind before you head out to the farm. If you're going to be bringing kids with you, give them a little bit of a primer in the car about how this is different from heading to the park. Be really mindful of your surroundings. Read the signs that are posted there for your safety. Make sure if there's a do not enter, don't go past this point, make sure you're respecting that. There's probably a really good reason for it. And biosecurity, another thing that it hasn't really come up yet, but if you are someone who happens to have, laying hens at home, or maybe you have a couple of goats or a few sheep, make sure that you do not wear your barn boots to another farm. It's pretty easy to accidentally introduce some sort of disease organism to another flock or another herd accidentally, just by what you're carrying on the bottom of your or your barn coat or whatever. Just make sure that you're not bringing anything with you that you don't want to leave at the farm.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, let's go to Robin, who's calling from Livermore Falls. Hi, Robin. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Keith. Thank you so much. And hi, Tori. Hey, it's Robin from Rockin' Sheep Farm.
Hey, Robin.
Hello. Talking about the agritourism, one thing that we're trying to get into is rustic farming, tent or rustic camping, tent camping. I know that the all farm insurance is not going to cover something like that. How bad is the insurance for people staying on a farm like that? Any ideas?
This is you're talking about liability insurance for...
Yeah. I mean, in the world we live in today, God knows you can't do without it. I carry over $1 million coverage just on the farm for visitors and for the meats and stuff we sell. But to have somebody come and pitch a tent on a platform, do we need extra coverage for that? If so, has anybody got any idea how much that's costing?
Yeah. Who wants to take that?
Yeah. This is Tori. Robin, that's a really great question, and one of the most important considerations for a farm if they're thinking about doing something that's not, strictly related to the production aspect. The most important considerations when looking at it are making sure that your insurance agent is willing to come out and actually physically look at what kinds of risks your customers might be exposed to. Something like a camping activity, may present far less risk than you're thinking compared to some other things that they might cover. And the coverage cost is it's variable. How many folks you're going to have doing this over the course of the year? How much is that going to contribute to your revenue? And again, are they going to be up on a platform? How high is that platform? Is it, really close to animals or, other potential risks? But it doesn't have to be cost prohibitive. I would say, reach out to insurance agents who your peers have had good experiences with. Have them come out and say, this is what we're thinking about doing. Can you quote me based on this?
Yeah. Is that, Robin, is that helpful?
Thank you. And I think it was, I don't know, it was Ann or Tori was talking about biosecurity with the farms. One thing we do is I have hand sanitizer and boot wash at the entrance on an open farm day. So everybody has to clean their feet and they have to clean their hands before they go touching my animals. Yeah. Just for that biosecurity reason. There's way too much stuff floating around.
Yeah. Robin, thank you so much. We're almost out of time, and I want to give Ann a chance to talk a little bit about Open Farm Day here in the final moments and what we need to know.
Great. Thanks, Keith. And thanks to all the callers. It's been nice to hear everyone and the energy behind agritourism. We are celebrating the 32nd annual Maine Open Farm Day this Sunday. We have more than 100 farms participating across the state. Today on this call, you've heard a lot of variety, and that's one of the things that Open Farm Day showcases. So you could see dairies, you can find pick your own flower farms, you can find pick your own fruit and vegetable farms. You'll get to know these farmers, and as we've heard, even when you're having to wash your hands or your boots or buy products, you get to see just how much love and attention goes into quality Maine farm products. And that's an exciting opportunity for people to see. And we have put up some maps and itineraries for our visitors and guests who want to explore farms this Sunday. You can go to realmaine.com to find that. And I'm sure we'll be able to share that with viewers and listeners. But I think the takeaway for this weekend is to get out there, rain or shine, ask questions, and develop a relationship with farmers across Maine. They're here working year round, and it's not a spontaneous business endeavor. They really are committed to supporting our community so that whether we're visiting on Open Farm Day or we're out hiking on a trail in the wintertime, that's accessible and remains available to residents and visitors alike year round.
Yeah, and there might be goats.
There will definitely be goats.
Right. Thank you, both of you, for joining us. Really appreciate it today.
Thank you.
Ann Trenholm manages agricultural promotions for the State Bureau of Agriculture, and Tori Jackson is a professor of agriculture and natural resources with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. Today's sound engineer was Keiji Akin Maladun. We had production help from John Keimel. Our theme song was composed by Mike Jandro. Cindy Hahn and Jonathan Smith produce Maine Calling. This program will air again tonight at 7. Visit mainecalling.org or listen to past programs, view links mentioned on the show, and you can sign up for our podcast as well. I'm Keith Shortall. You've been listening to Maine Calling on Maine Public Radio.